Planet X News for Sunday, July 29, 2012. Obama close to announcing extinction-level event. This just in, Nancy Lieder's weekly newsletter contains some startling news, and even though I'm very busy working on 2 new videos, one about a Russian scientist who discovered anti-gravity properties that enable large insects to fly without the pull of gravity, and then he built a device using the wings of these tiny creatures, and it flew at an altitude of 1,000 feet and almost 1,000 miles per hour. That's the first project I set aside in order to do this video on an emergency basis. The second video I'm working on is about the Mozart opera, The Marriage of Figaro, but that very important project will have to wait while I devote my time to this week's ZetaTalk.com report by Nancy Lieder, because this will knock your socks off. This will sink your boat. She has made some startling predictions in the past, and they have come true. And she mentions just a few this week out of many thousands of accurate predictions. Nancy Lieder, you remember, has friends in high places, and she doesn't make claims like other people I know, Benjamin Bullshit and Fake Drake and Cliff High, all idolized by one David Wilcock, who himself is another fake and mistake, for he never did go into a trance and cure anyone like the real Edgar Cayce, and I quit his camp long ago, before any of you figured out what's going on. And I was getting a lot of traffic as a result of Benjamin Bullshit, and it was daring and risky to depart. When I was doing Benjamin Bullshit reports, I hit an all-time high of 132,000 views in 1 month. And when I abandoned Benjamin Bullshit, my views dropped to about 98,000. It's about 25%. And I made the daring decision to begin reading Nancy Lieder's newsletters for one simple reason. She's often right. In fact, she's almost always right. But she is no more perfect than anyone else. The accuracy of her predictions does not come from disinformation and misinformation like Benjamin Bullshit and Drake the Fake. And I think they were intentionally misled by what Fulford thought was the CIA and the Queen. You may recall that Benjamin Bullshit elevated himself to the level of the Queen when she allegedly offered him a $1,200 trillion bond, and I choked as I read it to you because I found that incredulous. The world GDP is only $75 trillion. This is $1,200 trillion? How many years is that? It's 16 years. 16 years of gross domestic product for the entire world, and she's offering it to Benjamin Fulford? Pardon me, but that's not credible. And if he believed it, he's not the leader I thought he was. And so I jumped ship, and I took up with Nancy, and I suffered as a result of taking that action. Drake was another mistake, and he turned out to be a fake when his July 4th promised fireworks and mass arrests didn't happen. And these people just want to forget about it. They don't want to talk to you about their mistakes. They don't want to answer the question. They don't want to make a public announcement. I'm sorry I was such a fool and said July 4th would be recorded this year with mass arrests and fireworks like you've never seen. I was mistaken. Instead, he just hides, doesn't address the issue at all. I think Drake was played like a piano by the same folks who discredited Benjamin Bullshit, and for the same reason. They don't want you to have a guru, and they want to maintain total control of the lies you believe. So I advocate that you be careful and don't jump into anyone's wagon train until you have tasted their beef jerky and determined for yourself that it's the real deal. Some of these cooks are slinging hash that's pure trash, and it will give you a rash on your... well, I think you know where. When I jumped ship and abandoned Fake Drake and Benjamin Bullshit, going instead with Nancy Lieder, I stopped reading the Benjamin Fulford report. Some of you dropped subscribership with me. Some of you urged me to read those reports of the $1 trillion bond offers and the hot tips from the CIA and the Pentagon. But I smelled a rat, and I didn't want to be part of it anymore. And so I resisted your requests. And I explained I can't go along with Benjamin and his bullshit. I like Benjamin Fulford, and if I call him Benjamin Bullshit, it's not because I don't like him. It's because he's been played like a piano and he hasn't been careful enough to know when his keys are being cranked. My views dropped 25%, and then they started to rise after I made the switch to Nancy Leader and started covering Planet X. Whereas with Benjamin Fulford, my record was 132,000 views in 1 month. My views today are 157,000 for the past 30 days. And the old record for one day was just a little over 6,000. And recently I hit 7,363 on a single day. Now that's reaching a lot of people, because I came here thinking I'd reach 10 a day, and I reached 7,363 in a single day. Over 730,000 views on this channel in less than a year. I made the right decision, and the channel is growing at a rate of 400% annually right now. And it's because of Planet X videos. I'm just bringing you what the other people say, that's all. I'm not preaching a religion here. I'm not asking you to believe on faith. I'm asking you to consider these people's contributions, testimony, predictions. Consider them, that's all. I'm not ready to jump on their wagon train and eat their hash that's trash and will put a rash on your butt. Of the 157,000 views for the last month, 1/3 came from one video I did, with the insider reporting what he saw in the Hubble Space Telescope with his CIA mafia buddies. Yes, the CIA is a mafia, and they deal not only in illegal drugs, but their boy Mitt Romney used to launder money for them with his Panama company, Bain Capital. I expect a big scandal over Bain Capital when the truth comes out about this Panamanian company that he ran. And I expect the truth to come out about the CIA, that they not only traffic in drugs, but in sex-slave children as well. And Ted Gunderson covered this, and he explored it. He did his own investigation, and he was with the FBI. He was an honest man. He's dead now. But Ted Gunderson is one you want to read about and watch the videos. Bain Capital is something you need to explore if you're planning to vote for the lesser of two evils, Romney. I've read that investors with Bain Capital made 173% annually. It's a CIA front, and Romney is at the core of that CIA drug trafficking cartel and Bain Capital money laundering outfit. And if you think there's a war on drugs in this country, then you don't know the truth. There's a war against competition, maybe, because the CIA doesn't want any competition. Back to the space case in Planet X. Nancy Leader's facts come from those from the Zeta Reticuli star system. She calls them the Zetas. Some of you dirtbags out there think that all aliens belong to the same country club and score the same on the golf course. But actually, they're aliens from every point in the night sky, and some of those points are actually entire galaxies. Did you see the video where they found a small patch of black sky, and they thought nothing is there, and they pointed the Hubble Space Telescope at it for 11 days, something like 11 days, and they found 10,000 galaxies where there was absolutely no light emanating from there at all. 10,000 galaxies! And the announcer said in that video, every point of light you see is not a star, it's an entire galaxy with billions of stars. Now, do you think there's life there? The aliens tell us there's life all over the universe. Not every planet. Some planets are uninhabitable. But when you look up in the sky and you see nothing but blackness, and then you point the Hubble there and you see galaxies, you know that there are at least 20 alien groups from each point of light. So don't clump all the grays into one simple category, because that is a very ignorant view of the reality of space and the universe. There are dozens of gray species that we already know of, and millions of gray species that we haven't met, because they're busy and they don't have time for one useless planet out there in the cosmos. If we can't see them with the naked eye, they might not be able to see our galaxy with the naked eye either. And when they look through a helper like the Hubble Space Telescope and they see our galaxy finally, they don't realize that there's one planet on one of those stars and there's Earth people on it. This is not important. It's not significant. But if you think that we are the only life in the universe, just remember you're on a tiny speck in the cosmos and your brain is even smaller. So we really don't have the capacity to understand the entire universe and all the life that's here. And we have a very narrow way of thinking. So don't cluster all these grays into one category. I get many comments from you guys. You're telling me specifically how many gray species there are. And I write back, how would you know? I don't mean to be offensive. I'm just asking you a question. How in the hell do you know? And some of you write to me about Jesus. Do you think it's your job to spread the word of Jesus? Or to tell everybody that Jesus is going to save us? Save it for Sunday school. This is not a church. It's a channel. Do you know the difference? Don't quote scripture here. Save it for Sunday school. Only small children would believe such rubbish. Jesus doesn't pop out of nowhere and save somebody who's drowning in a flood, burning up in a building, or falling into a sinkhole. Anyone who believes such garbage is delusional, in my opinion. Slap yourself. Wake up. This is worse than the delusion that marriage works and people want to be imprisoned by the institution of marriage. People just want to be free, that's all. Married people are cheating. They want to be free. They're lying to their spouse. Marriage doesn't work anywhere on earth, except in little pockets here and there, maybe once in a while. It works, because two people are so ugly, they can't cheat. But good-looking people are pursued, and they like the action. And they fool around everywhere on earth. Why do you think the Muslims cover their faces? They don't want you to see how pretty their wife is. You might try to nail her. People want to be free, that's all. Jesus hasn't saved one person who is burning up in a building. Some of you people think that Jesus is watching every move you make. That isn't Jesus. That's the secret government. Don't you see the cameras everywhere? Haven't you noticed how slow your computer is now? What do you think that is? It's their algorithms. They forced the software manufacturers to put in these algorithms, and they can't take them out and they can't talk about it, or the CIA will murder them. They put routines on the software, and the software reports back to them like a spy. And every letter you type on the keyboard, every word you say on the telephone is being recorded not by Jesus, but by the secret government. Those watching you are Nazis, not Jesus. Wake up and smell the fascism. Do you know of just one case where a devout Christian was saved by Jesus himself? There isn't any such story. There are more stories of people being picked up by aliens and taken to a foreign planet, like Billy Meyer. He went to many planets. He asked a lot of questions. He sounded like a third grader. Why is there air? So why do you believe such things like this Jesus stuff? Because you were brainwashed as a kid and now you're going to brainwash your kids and continue the legacy of lying and telling kids lies and making them believe in something that isn't there? I think it's all right if you practice Christianity as long as you don't brainwash kids. But don't come to this channel with your religious stuff because I don't like it. I don't like the quoting of Scripture. And I block a lot of people because they bring nonsense to my channel. Sometimes a religious scripture is so appropriate I can't do anything about it. I just leave it there. But I don't like it. I believe that religion is slavery. What am I, a slave? I ain't no slave. I believe that you're believing in things that are purely imaginary, and that's delusional. Okay, now I'm going to read the weekly newsletter from ZetaTalk.com. Go to the site, click on Free Newsletter on the left, click on Archives, and the latest one is on top. I'm reading from July 29th, Sunday, July 29th. I know that today is July 27th. I'm recording this on a Friday night, and you'll get it on Saturday, the 28th. and it's for Sunday the 29th. But 2 weeks from now, there will be a new one out, and I want you to know which one to click on if you want to follow along on this reading, because I throw in a lot of comments to make it interesting. So July 29th is the one you want, and if you want to read all of them, go ahead. It will take you about 5 years. They go all the way back. You will see countless of accurate predictions, including the one that says that Planet X is real, and it's interacting not only with our planet, but with all the planets and moons in our solar system. And Al Gore is a bore and a liar, and global warming is a hoax in that it was not caused by car exhaust, it was caused by Planet X. And there's no reason to put a tax on the air so the Queen can have more of your money to spend. The Queen has enough money, and we, the world, have had enough royalty. We need less royalty in the world. Nobody is better than me and you. We need better leaders. We need truth for a change. The ZetaTalk Newsletter, issue 304, Sunday, July 29, 2012. Weekly news and views from around the world and beyond. During the Earth wobble, the Earth moves in space, the magnetic North Pole shoved away by the magnetic North Pole of Planet X, and then later bouncing back. Thus, objects like the moon will appear to move in the sky during wobble points. Have you noticed that your GPS will take a leap, and suddenly it has your car 300 feet off the road that you're driving on? And you look at the screen and you say, how did that happen? Well, the satellite is showing you in a different position because the Earth wobbled. The satellite has you figured to be in a particular point, and when you move 300 feet because the Earth moved, that GPS is showing you on a different road. And then it says something like calculating, because it's trying to figure out what happened. You just leaped off the road 300 feet. You're continuing down the same road at the same speed, and it shows you leaping 300 feet to the left or right into oncoming traffic. I mean, my God, if GPS was a thinking human being, it would say you're heading into oncoming traffic, perhaps. But that's the satellite, and it has to reprogram to the new Earth position. Don't worry, the guys who developed these satellites and this entire system of GPS know very well that the Earth is going to wobble. And so in about 30 seconds, you look at the screen and you're back on track. Now, how did that happen? Because they reprogrammed where you're at and the position relative to that satellite. The satellite adjusted to the wobble in the Earth is what happened. Nancy shows a picture of the moon. This guy took the picture, Gordon James Giannotto. He's Italian, I guess. And she puts these photos up, and I'm not sure who it was that marked off the image, probably Giannotto. But he shows you that the moon did not rise in the sky. It moved from left to right. A small amount, but he caught it on camera. It's a great example of the Earth wobble. And there are photos to prove it. And her information comes from aliens, not the secret government that owns Obama. So Nancy writes, the Earth wobble shows up on satellite images as the globe moves under the satellite. The clouds twisting first this way and later that day during figure 8 of the wobble. Those who've had the opportunity to observe the wobble while looking at the moon have reported rapid motion in a short period of time. To date, this has not been captured on film by the startled observers, but Gordon James Giannotto quite unintentionally captured the wobble on the morning of July 3rd, 2012 at 8:26 p.m. Jumping up to snap the full moon on the horizon, he took a second snap no more than 20 seconds later to ensure a good result, and later was astonished to find that he had captured the moon on the move. Remember, it wasn't the moon, it was the Earth that wobbled. Is this amazing? Look at the photos while I read on. Nancy says, of course this is the Earth on the move, but to those standing on the surface it appears the moon is moving. And then James jumps in and says, these two photos I took from the same camera position within less than 1 minute apart at sunset on July 3rd show the moon not rising with the sky at 1 degree each 4 minutes, but sliding south without gaining altitude, at least half the diameter of the moon. 1 degree in less than 60 seconds. Remember, folks, the Earth is a big magnet, and Planet X is a bully magnet. Planet X pushes the Earth around, and if your GPS says you left the road, that's Planet X pushing the Earth around. Nancy continues, normally any photos of the moon rising would show it going up in the next frame 1 degree every 4 minutes with the sky. But here we have the moon moving horizontally more than 1 degree and not gaining any elevation in 2 consecutive photos, both saved as being taken in the same minute, 8:26 p.m. on July 3rd, 2012. And James tells us that his camera is a 14 MP. I don't know what that is. And it processes the image, displays it on the LCD screen, and is ready to take another picture in no more than 20 seconds later than the first, perhaps 10 seconds later. I wanted to take the photos and run back inside to avoid the bugs. So he's got mosquitoes or something outside and they eat him up. He must be in a warm, moist area. I did not change the zoom, the focus, or the exposure. I did not delay between photos. About 6 months ago, I saw Orion rise in the northeast, then Sirius, and then went in for half an hour. When I came back out, Orion and Sirius had not risen one bit, but had slid about 75 degrees to the south. That was from the wobble as well. Now here you have a layman with his camera, and he's obviously an amateur astronomer, and he's capturing things and reporting it. To who? Not the secret government, because what would they do? They would tell him to keep his mouth shut or he'll be murdered. He's reporting it to Nancy Leader as scientific evidence. And all you people were writing to me saying, how come the amateur astronomers have not seen this? Well, here's one case where a guy has. All you have to do is open your eyes, open your ears, hear it and see it, and then slap yourself to wake yourself up, because this is real. It's only one testimony. I don't want you to run off with one testimony and say, the sky is falling, the sky is falling. That's not the purpose. You collect all the facts, all the testimony. I've seen a lot of pictures of Nibiru which I know are bullshit. I don't believe that Nancy Leader's pictures of Nibiru are real. How do you like that? Just to show you that I am not a believer in anybody or anything. I just move around and try to get it all. Try to understand everything that's going on around me. I will decide what's real. And I will decide when to reach my conclusion. And here's one guy, an amateur astronomer, bringing forth evidence. This is hard evidence. Now, you might say, how do you know we can trust him? That's a valid question, and that's why you don't jump in yet. You got to taste the beef jerky of the wagon train before you join the wagon train. Okay? So we have here another paragraph. At 8:26 in New England, on July 3rd, 2012, the moon is in the southeast. The globe, in the midst of its figure-8 wobble, has the sun high noon over the Pacific. The figure-8 wobble moves in such a way that the view toward the southeast from New England would have the globe moving up under the moon, such that the moon would appear to jump to the right and drop. I don't know what he's talking about. Maybe you do. But from what I understand, Planet X is south of the ecliptic. If it's close enough to cause volcanoes, sinkholes, shifting plates, and all this stuff that's going on, if it's close enough that the aliens are here doing crop circles to warn us, I think that's enough for me. I'm ready to consider the possibility of Planet X. I was never willing to consider Y2K. And a lot of people like to say, oh, this is like Y2K. No, it's not. We didn't have crop circles for Y2K. We didn't have plates shifting all over the place for Y2K. Now, Nancy says the moon appears to jump to the right and drop. This coincides with what Gordon captured. The moon suddenly jumping to the right. Where is the Planet X to cause all this? It would have to be relatively close, Because the Earth wobble is one of the last important events that you see just before we go into this 7-week period, counting down, including the 3 days of darkness or whatever. I did a video about the calendar, and I showed you what happens the last 7 weeks. And this all comes from ZetaTalk. So she says that Gordon captured the moon suddenly jumping to the right as he pointed his camera at the rising moon at azimuth 127 in the southeast. Now, I don't know what that means, but if he touched that camera, then the experiment is dead. It's tainted. But if he clicked the thing twice, and it took one picture, and then without any influence outside whatsoever on that tripod, it doesn't say anything here about a tripod. I presume he put it on a tripod. He said he clicked it twice and he ran inside because of the bugs, and that this thing takes a picture and then takes another picture within 20 seconds and probably within 10 seconds. He took 2 pictures in order to make sure that he got the shot of the full moon, and he happened to capture the moon moving or the Earth wobbling. Now, Nancy says the ecliptic in the view from New England is slanted from lower left to upper right. The moon should very slowly move along the ecliptic rising, not dropping or remaining in place as the evening progressed. It certainly should not jump directly to the right in less than a minute. I agree with the last sentence. The rest of it I don't understand. And scientists would find plenty of fault with this testimony. But what we might have in the picture is we might have captured the Earth wobble because the moon does not rise, it moves to the right. And that's obvious from the 2 pictures that were taken. If anybody wants to challenge this, they have plenty of grounds for challenging it, but I think it's an honest representative of what happened. He caught it by accident. He reported it not to the authorities who would trash it, make sure that none of you ever saw it. He reported it to Nancy Leader, and she goes public with it as if it's real. She had a little homework to do. Maybe she didn't do all of her homework here. She's throwing this out there as a fact, like Benjamin Fulford and Drake the Fake. But her last statement, it certainly did not jump directly to the right in less than a minute. The Earth is wobbling. Now you have one testimony from one person with a camera, an amateur astronomer, who says, I caught the wobble. And he tells you how he caught it, and you can believe him, or you can consider it, or you can dismiss it if you want to. If you're in the debunking business, and you're debunking everything, then go ahead and debunk this too, and you will never have any real testimony from anyone, because you're Mr. Debunker. Nancy continues, the Zetas have predicted a more severe and detectable wobble in the war on the cover-up, with the wobble increasing and the rate of increase accelerating. Now I'm speaking. Okay, folks, you heard it straight from the Zetas. The wobble will become more severe prior to the pole shift. Did you see my video on the calendar of events leading up to the pole shift? It covers about 7 weeks. And as I recall, the severe wobble is the opener. It's the opening act of the last 7 weeks in the pole shift countdown. When the pole shift happens, there's huge tsunamis. They come to shore and they wreck all the houses and drown about 80% of the world's people. And those who are so-called survivors, they may not live very long because Walmarts won't be open and some of them will die without Walmart because of the groceries and stuff. And the clothes. Like you're going to need clothes when there's hardly anybody left. So do a search of the word calendar on my channel and you'll pull up that video. Watch it. It's also part of the playlist for Planet X. Watch them all. It won't hurt you. Go there and see this very important video. Many of you are writing to me and asking me in your messages, when is the big event? And I have said repeatedly, I don't know for sure. I'm not even sure there's going to be an event. But my guess is it's probably March or April. Does that mean that I'm predicting that in March or April there will be a pole shift? What I said was, I'm not sure. But my guess is March or April. Now you know the Dutch physicist who worked with Marshall Masters? Now, you know the Dutch physicist who worked with Marshall Masters to set up Yowza.com? I think his name is Jacob van der Wol. He seems to be predicting February 2013, a month before my guess, March or April. And he has some very nice images to support what he's saying. The problem is, he's a laser physicist. Technical mind, I don't disagree, but he is not an astronomer. And how he knows exactly where Planet X is or exactly when it will arrive, I think is questionable. I didn't even know about the guy until about a week ago. And I was reading about Marshall Masters, and Marshall Masters mentioned this Dutch physicist, Jacob van der Wol or something. And I'm going to do a video on it because his images are really fascinating, and I think it would make an interesting video. And all of you are asking me, when is this thing going to be here? Well, here's a guy who says when it's going to be here. He says February 2013. And he's a Dutch physicist. And he's associated with Marshall Masters. And Marshall Masters has written several books on Planet X. And Marshall Masters believes in Planet X. Marshall Masters does not convince me, but he has my curiosity and my interest. I'm like you guys. I'm trying to figure it all out. I believe that the December 21st, 2012 Mayan calendar baloney is being rammed down our throats. It's disinformation, and it's rammed down our throats like the Healthcare Control Program or the Patriot Act. It's government-sponsored terrorism against the people by spreading lies and misinformation and disinformation. So I'm pretty sure that December 21st will be a calm winter. That's the first day of winter. Be a calm winter night or day, and there will be nothing important going on that day, except Planet X will be closer than ever. It will be causing weather patterns, wobbling of the earth, and so on. We're probably not into the last 7 weeks at that point, unless van der Wol, Jacob van der Wol, the Dutch physicist, is right. If he's right, we have severe wobble by December 21st, because February is less than 7 weeks away from December 21st. We might even see the 3 days of darkness around this time, maybe by January 1st. But if you don't see Planet X in the sky, and you don't hear about any more earthquakes, and you don't hear about any more volcanoes or sinkholes or bridges collapsing, if you don't see any more crop circles, then just forget about Planet X. It's Y2K. Okay? If you believe in the December 21st bogus date, I don't think anybody should believe in that. Not even Benjamin Bullshit and the fake Drake mistake. We have a UN, and it's the control agent for the secret government. Does everybody know that? The United Nations is under control of the secret government. They are the ones now telling us whether we should enter a war or not. Not our Congress, not our people, but the UN. This is bullshit. And Leon Panetta should be ashamed of himself. And when the mobs march on Washington, don't be surprised if the radicals lynch him. I hope we can avoid the violence. But letting the UN make decisions for the United States of America is wrong. And it's prohibited in the Constitution, but we don't have any constitutional candidates. They're all Nazis and fascists. They all work for the secret government, which controls them and the UN. Now, the aliens have an organization. Nancy tells us about it. It's a more benign organization called the Council of Worlds. And here's what Nancy writes on June 16th, 2012. The Council of Worlds has threatened a series of shocks increasingly devastating to the cover-up. The Council of Worlds has threatened a series of shocks increasingly devastating to the cover-up. The presence of Planet X was frankly obvious during the first lunar eclipse and Venus transit. Obvious. Planet X was frankly obvious during the lunar eclipse and the Venus transit of the sun. And the earth wobble is raising questions even among those who do not look to the skies. I was looking at my GPS, not to the skies, and I saw my car leap 300 feet to the right. I was driving in the middle of a cornfield or something. I guess in Arizona it's a cotton field. I'm from Illinois. It was a cornfield. So the earth wobble is raising questions among those who don't even look to the skies. They're not going to go away. They're going to continue, Nancy says. And I've said a lot of people have been likening Planet X to Y2K, but Venus wasn't 10 minutes late in her transit of the sun in the Y2K scare. That's one big difference between Planet X and Y2K. Y2K was never real. Planet X is real everywhere you look. You look at the crop circles, you look at the bridges falling, you look at the earthquakes, the volcanoes, and the global warming. You look at all the planets warming up and all the moons warming up. It screams Planet X. Something is here. It's affecting everything. And we could see this Planet X drawing from the sun some solar flares that come way out and scorch the hell out of the earth. And in this case, hell is appropriately used, scorching the hell out of the earth. This is chilling. This is serious. Did Y2K cause record numbers of volcanoes? Hell no. Did Yellowstone rise 12 inches during Y2K? No way! When the big Japan earthquakes take place, Nancy Lieder is right. When the New Madrid fault gives following the Japanese earthquake, the calendar that Nancy gave us is right again. And at that time, I want to ask you a question. If you see the big earthquake in Japan, 9+ on the Richter scale, and then the New Madrid fault line gives, and we see a big earthquake in the central of the United States, around the area of Arkansas, Kentucky, Tennessee, southern Illinois, southern Indiana, are you going to hop over the fence and join those who believe in Planet X? I might go with you over that fence at that point because we're getting close. I just want to see it in the sky, that's all. And I'm not looking at the sun because I don't think it's there. I think it's 90 degrees from the sun. I think it's in the southern portion of the solar system. That is below the ecliptic plane. All the planets are on a disk, a plane, except Pluto's got a weird orbit. It goes above and below the plane, but they're all basically in a plane, and this Planet X is supposed to come in from below. That's why they built the South Pole telescope, to watch it coming in. And then it's supposed to whip around, and by February, according to Jacob van der Wol, it's supposed to sling out on the ecliptic plane, be nearest to the sun and nearest to the earth at the same time, and that's when we're going to have a pole shift. Because this thing is a bully, and it will be close enough to command us to give up our loyalty to the sun, magnetic loyalty that is, and obey the new leader, Planet X, and for a short time we're going to shift quickly, and that's going to cause all the tidal waves and all the deaths. And the prediction is that 90% of us will die. I'm ready to go. I'm old. I don't care. I don't want to live in a Nazi-controlled country. I don't want to live in a country where the TSA touches my genitals and doesn't even buy me lunch. Doesn't even cook a candlelight dinner and expects sex. No. I'm joking, of course, but I hate the TSA, and I hate the Department of Homeland Security, and I hate the secret government, and I hate Obama, and I hate the Nazi that's running against him, and I want to see them all wiped out. And I want to see them down in the hole that they built to escape the danger, and I want to hear that they drank each other's piss to survive. So my question to you is, will you hop the fence and join those who believe in Planet X when the Japan earthquakes take place, and following that the New Madrid gives? Because immediately following the New Madrid is the tidal wave, or the tsunami, that goes into the English Channel and wipes out Denmark. It's very sad. I always wanted to go there and meet the people there and see the buildings. I love architecture. And I'm very disappointed that I won't be able to do that. It's too late. When you look up in the sky and you see Planet X with your own eyes, will you stop telling me that it's like Y2K, please? Will you go out and buy some canned foods? And there are a few very disturbing questions I need to ask you. What about those who are too poor to move out of New York City? Is anybody going to help them? Are you going to help them? I can't. I'm too far away. I have a 4-bedroom house in Arizona, and I live here alone, and I'm saving my space for my friends first. And I think everybody else is going to say, my friends and my family come first. But what are you going to do when apparently very nice people are begging for food and they haven't eaten for days? Are you going to help them out? I'm sorry to say it, but there will be tens of thousands of them in every city that's 200 miles or more from the coast. And there won't be any place for them to stay and nothing for them to eat. And you're the only one that can help them because your cowardly government will be down in their safe bunkers by then, and they won't give a rat's lab about you dirtbags on the surface. Now, as we approach the pole shift, the wobble gets much worse, and the people notice it more and more. Nancy writes on July 14, 2012, progress in this matter is gradual as the establishment can see that this will not last forever, the cover-up. And evidence handed to the common man has an upward and exponential trend. Okay, so that means we're going to be finding out the truth, and it's going to go viral. She calls it an upward and exponential trend. You would say it's going to go viral. Nancy writes, the Earth wobble has been increased so that the sun almost appears to rise in the north at times, and the moon swirls of Planet X are visible with the naked eyes around the sun, seen by many and captured on video. Well, I don't agree. I don't think those are moon swirls. I think those are all camera flares, all of them. Because if they move their camera and take a different picture, if they just move it 10 degrees and take another picture, that moon swirl moves with it. And one of my viewers pointed out to me to go to Lodi, California, and go to a particular street. Can't remember the name of the street. And he told me to look up in the sky. So I went on that street and I looked up in the sky and I drove up and down the streets. You know how on Google Earth you can go down the street and cameras attached to cars, and they took pictures from 360 degrees. And you can see everything, up, down, left, right. The only thing you can't see is down. You can't see the ground, but you can see all around you and up above where the sun is. So he told me, look up near the sun. I looked up and I saw a moon there. And I said, well, okay, looks like a moon. Looks like Planet X or something. Nancy's calling them moon swirls. So then I thought I would turn down another street and the camera then would be angled differently. Well, guess what? The moon swirls were there in the sky, but now they weren't anywhere near the sun. And so I told him, if you turn on this other street and look up, you see the same dot, but this time there's no sun. I think that dot is a bug on the lens, or it's a water droplet, because it looks spherical. It's probably a bug that's not focused, and so it looks like a planet. Anyway, I do not believe that it was Planet X, and I easily convinced this person that it was also not Planet X. And he accepted my explanation. But Nancy calls them moon swirls of Planet X. I think that Planet X is 90 degrees south of the sun, and that you can't see it in the northern hemisphere yet, but you will soon, because it's coming up. And when it's on the ecliptic plane, we in the northern hemisphere will see it. It will look like a full moon. It will get that large, and it will pass, and it will go out into space, and we won't see it again for 3,600 years. But in the meantime, it'll cause a pole shift, and I believe that many of us are going to die at that time. The next paragraph says, what goes on? I've turned every sentence into a paragraph, so when I say paragraph, I'm reading the next paragraph on my screen, but on your screen it might be the next sentence. What goes on in the minds of those at the helm in the establishment when they realize the common man can absolutely ascertain the earth wobble by the position of the sun and are doing so? I step in and say, I'll tell you what happens. Some of those who have a conscience step forward and protest their cowardly leaders who couldn't lead us to a basketball game. And some of these subordinates who are going to know that they are wrong in being so selfish about this. Up until now, I have said I'm not sure about Planet X and I need to see more crop circles, more sinkholes, more bridges collapsing, and more 9+ earthquakes to be really convinced. But when I make a video and it gets 1,000 views a day, that tells me that the people are into this and they know what's happening. I think it's already going viral. And that's why I rushed to get this video done. You know? The leadership isn't leading and the cover-up is coming apart. Nancy writes, there has been steadfast erosion in the ranks. This trend has pockmarked the ranks of the establishment, determined to maintain the cover-up so that it looks like Swiss cheese rather than a wall of solid determination. Now, if you're on the ZetaTalk website and you're following along as I read this, and you see that I'm injecting my opinions and some details that I think will make it more interesting for you to hear this, and you are free to turn off the video and just read the report on your own. There's no gun to your head. This is not a government program. We used to have a country that was not made up of gun-to-your-head programs. We used to be free to choose. The country is not ours anymore. They've ruined it. They've stolen it. They have wrecked the economy with their fascism and greed. And it's all coming apart now. Nancy continues, and she speaks about the Second Great Depression and says, at the start of the ZetaTalk saga, the Zetas predicted the world will fall into a second Great Depression. In December 1999, they predicted the stock market collapse that occurred in 2008. Okay, so whereas Benjamin Bullshit says the Pope will retire on April 15, 2012, and Drake says there will be mass arrests and fireworks to remember on July 4th, none of that happened. Nancy's little friends said in December of 1999 that the stock market will crash, and it did crash in 2008. It's going to crash again, and in this next round, it's really going down to Chinatown. Nancy writes, in July 2002, they predicted the bursting of the real estate bubble, which peaked in 2006 and then rapidly collapsed, and asserted the world was in fact already in a second Great Depression. So our second Great Depression began in 2006 with the real estate-related disasters. Crop shortages and bankruptcies are at an all-time high worldwide. I think a big depression is coming, but I think they've delayed it with QE1, 2, and actually QE3 was already initiated when they started buying back the treasuries. This is like going into your own store and buying your own merchandise and claiming that you're doing business. That's what they're doing. They're putting off the ultimate result of their behavior, which is a crash, and they're going to make the crash much, much worse. But they don't care because they've got plenty of money, and you're the ones that are going to pay. And they don't care. They don't give a rat's lab about you. Now, Nancy stretches it a bit in claiming a victory on that one. I don't think that it's correct before 2012. I believe we are in a depression, and it's a deep depression, because I talk to people and I know what's going on around me. And we are definitely in a severe depression, equally as bad as the one before. And the government's lying to us about everything. But Nancy's stretch is not nearly as bad as Cliff High's claims of predictions on his vague outline of what's to come. And I don't think that anything he's predicted has really come as he said. Even his strongest claims are weak compared to what Nancy just laid out for us. Their prediction in 2008 of a severe depression by 2012 is accurate, but not a dead center. I think that the events in Washington and with the Federal Reserve have put off and caused us to suffer an even worse calamity by QE1 and 2. This was passing out money to all their buddies and saving their own banks at our expense, which is going to make it far, far more severe on the people. And what do people do when they're having tough economic times? They revolt I predict violence. I predict lynchings. I predict that the people in Washington are going to be massacred. The leaders will be massacred by the people. And that there will be hundreds of millions of people killed in this as well, all over the world, as the people rise up against their dictatorial leaders. And I wish we could avoid all that. Spreading the truth is my strategy. So people are paying Cliff High $10 for this kind of prediction. His vague predictions. Nancy doesn't charge anything. She's been putting in her own free time and not making any money at this. And I think that that's a great gift to all of us. Okay, if I sound different, it's because I took a break and a nap and I'm back. Nancy told that the second depression was coming and when it would be here. She was right, thanks to the Zetas. And now she's telling you that the wobble will get much more severe as we enter the last 7 weeks prior to the pole shift. I think the images that Giannanotti took were pretty impressive. And if that's not a severe wobble, I don't know what is. We could be in the last 7 weeks right now. I don't know. But if we're not in the last 7 weeks, I believe the next few months will put us into the last 7 weeks. I would say around December or so, we're going to be entering the last 7 weeks. But that's my guess. I'm giving you an idea of what I think. You should consider it among thousands of others. And every person you talk to, every person you listen to is going to have a different opinion. And they're going to give you their reasons. My reasons are based on that image that you saw, based on the crop circles, based on the earthquakes, the volcanoes, the magnitude of those earthquakes, and the number of volcanoes. And if you want to do a superficial investigation and then reach your conclusion based on what some movie star said who has done no homework at all and makes $20 million a movie, I don't know of any such person, by the way. I'm just trying to make a point here. You may listen to other people, and those other people may have no foundation whatsoever. I have a solid, concrete, reinforced, rebar-enforced concrete opinion based on fact, not rumor. This is not Y2K to me. This is real. And when I see Nibiru in the sky, I'm going to hop that fence and be with those of you who are believers. Because I'm not a religious person. I don't believe in faith. I believe in fact. And it has to be concrete. And I have to be able to put my hand on it to know it's real. My best guess is March, April next year. 2013. I won't be saying that in March or April. I'll be saying July. No. I think the crop circles are pretty serious business. I don't think aliens are messing with our heads. Some of you think that all aliens are alike. You're the same people that thought that all black people were alike. And then we found out that they're better than us in many ways. They're certainly not an inferior race like some people believe, and the Nazis thought that certain people should be eliminated. The Jews were one of the brightest people on earth. I like the Jews. They've always been my favorite people. I don't condone Mossad's murder of Americans. Nancy Leader gave you a schedule 7 weeks prior to the pole shift. I did a video on it, and the link is on your screen now. If you like the way I did this video, then post it on your channel. If you prefer to make a better video, nobody has a gun to your head like the IRS. So what are you waiting for, Fellini? Make it the movie, eh? All you have to do is watch the movie, and you have all the events in order as they count down the last 7 weeks. And this is according to one alien group, the Zetas. And that information is passed through Nancy Leader, and she is an imperfect human who makes mistakes. But I have to give her credit. She has brought us a lot of truthful predictions. And if you want to read 1,000 of them, go to her website, ZetaTalk.com, click on Free Newsletter on the left, and then click on Archives, and read until you have concrete evidence of a pole shift. Because my video is the best I can do. If you saw the crop circles, what did the image depict? Do you see planets and an object getting bigger? What do you think, folks? You think these aliens fly across the galaxy to warn us, as if this is another Al Gore hoax? These people are not paid liars like Al Gore. These people are not on the side of the Illuminati, paid to mislead you. These aliens are not playing. They're trying to save your butts, whoever did the crop circles. Those who did the crop circles might be light creatures. They might be purely spiritual. They might not have a physical body, but they might be able to affect physical changes in our world. And so they do this swirl around with their light, and they form the crop circles, and they are really perfect. They're really well done. And you can tell the ones that are done by drunks, they're blurry. The aliens have the technology to know what's happening, and they came here to warn you, to save you. Some of you, not all of you. Some of you deserve to perish. Some of you are mean and vicious, and you deserve to die. You deserve to get stuck on earth for 1,000 lifetimes. But those of you who try to help others, you are really what the universe wants. You are loved by all. Those who are mean and vicious are hated by everyone. And we wish them the worst luck. If 90% of the people on earth die, I think a lot of good people are going to die. Where are they going to go? I suppose they're going to go into spirit form. I guess we are temporarily a physical body and permanently a spiritual form that cannot die, does not die. And so I'm not going to worry about who dies and who lives. I'm concerned with the truth. I think everyone deserves to know the truth. And whoever did those crop circles thinks that you deserve to know the truth because your government is a bunch of liars and they should all be deposed and then disposed of. And I think the underground facilities that they built for themselves is ideal. They go there voluntarily. The earth shakes, cracks, it floods down there, or there are toxins that get in somehow and they all perish. Good riddance. That's the way I feel. Am I shy? There is so much evidence about Planet X. I'm just about ready to start believing in Planet X, folks. A little more time and I'm there. I would just like to see it in the sky, if you don't mind. I know the moon moved. It was actually the earth wobbling, and it appeared that the moon moved. I saw the Venus transit. And if it was really 10 minutes late, this is significant. But I just can't jump on any more bandwagons of belief and get played like a piano because it's humiliating. I've had my piano played many times. Boy, you kidding? It's like someone touching your genitals at the airport. I don't like this. If you want to touch my genitals, cook me dinner. And get out the candles. I still fall for that routine. And for God's sakes, don't be my age. That's way too old. Find some young guy who has no experience. He might enjoy the pleasures of an older woman. You're still hot, just not with me. You're still in demand. Just have to find the right guy. You know what I mean? Younger guys look at you as experienced. They want to try some of that. I tried some of that. And I want to try something else. So, candlelight and salmon, and I'm all yours. But touch me at the airport, and I'll punch you in your face. No, I'm just kidding. I'm nonviolent. But I don't like it. Don't touch my genitals at the airport, TSA. Terrorist scam agency. Touch me there, and you'll find I'm not in the mood. And I've got a short fuse with Nazis, and I might tell you what you are. You're working for the bad guys. And they use this airport rush situation to get friendly with the passengers. And I don't like what they're doing to the airlines. They're ruining their business. I don't like what they're doing to our country. They're conditioning the people for Nazism. And I oppose you with every word I speak. Every breath I take, I want to eliminate you. I hate Nazis. And I see the TSA as a bunch of Nazis. And this routine that they put you through is nonsense. It's a conspiracy to break you so they can control your mind. Because if the government really wanted to find the real terrorists, they would just open up and answer questions again, and that would lead us very quickly to the CIA and Mossad, who did 9/11 and killed Americans so they could pass the Patriot Act. I know what's going on, and I don't like it. And I'm speaking out about it, and I don't care if they kill me. I'm speaking out about it until I die. You will never get away with 9/11. And I know very well why they stopped answering our questions. And they want to just move on like some con artist who took your money and now he just wants to move on. He doesn't want to talk to you anymore. There's so much evidence that 9/11 was an inside job. I think everyone should be a conspiracy theorist by now. But there are some out there who still have their foot stuck in the mud, and they can't believe that their government would do such a thing. Well, collect the facts, and if the cameras and the executive orders and the killing of Americans who haven't even been charged with a crime and the trashing of the Constitution is not enough to convince you, then have somebody close to you slap the shit out of you because you're stupid and you probably never read a book in your life. These people are what I call clueless. They are largely responsible for the mess that this country is in because they won't face the truth, even if the evidence is overwhelming. Look how long it took America to realize that we've been had with the JFK assassination, Lee Harvey Oswald, and the fake Warren report. It took us all these years to realize that the Warren report is a piece of trash, prepared by the Chief Justice Earl Warren of the Supreme Court. It shows you how corrupt the government is. Today, 82% of us don't believe the Warren report, and the other 18% are clueless. They don't know who Warren was or what he reported. Anyone with a brain knows that the CIA had orders to kill Kennedy. And if you watch the videos, you can see them calling back the agents who were clueless. They said, "What the hell? What are you doing?" Throwing the hands up 3 times. "What are you doing calling me off? My job is to protect the president." And then pow, 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 pow. And the back of Kennedy's head goes flying out the back of the motorcade. He was hit from the front and the right. His head went back and to the left. And the piece of skull flew out the back of the motorcade. Does that tell you anything? The CIA had orders to kill Kennedy, and it had to do with the Federal Reserve and the free ride that bankers were getting by charging interest on money they did not earn and they did not lend to the U.S. government. Kennedy was wise to it. He wanted to stop it, and they put a bullet in his head in broad daylight, like any other fucking mafia. The JFK assassination was done to stop Kennedy from ending the parasitism of the Federal Reserve and the outside control of our money system. Every one of you should be devoted to ending the Federal Reserve system. This is a highly corrupt and parasitic system, and it keeps everyone poor. We would all be living in luxury if it wasn't for these bastards. And only by spreading the truth and everyone becoming aware are we ever going to get rid of these bastards in the Federal Reserve. But if you elect one of these 2 Nazis running for puppet president, getting rid of the Federal Reserve is unlikely. It's impossible. They are both deeply entrenched with the mafia that runs everything. Romney was not a businessman. He was a goddamn crook, running a Panamanian company which laundered money for the CIA's drug business. That's who he is. And if you vote for either one of these Nazis, you're voting for the lesser of 2 evils. And you might as well get ready for a carbon tax because they both have it on the agenda, just like the health care control bill. Now they have direct access to your veins. They can inject anything they want in you. You'll pay into Social Security your whole life, and they will give you an injection, and you're poof, gone. And they have the right to do it because they passed a law that they can do it. Executive orders. Your country is run by Nazis. The last thing that this world economy needs is a tax on air. It's done in order to control every breath you take. And if everybody out there who's buying guns is as angry as I am, you're going to see them storm Washington and start slaughtering the politicians. And I'd like to avert that. I'd like to see us do this by spreading the truth. When those bastards start pushing buttons, they'll shut off your water. You won't be able to flush your toilet. You'll vomit when you go into your bathroom. It'll smell that bad. They will stop all shipping of goods. You'll starve to death. And if you think they don't have it in them, you don't know the Nazis. I would like to see the Nazis out of power, in prison, and those who murdered the innocent at the end of a rope, dangling for all to see that they are dead as they should be. With the worsening of the economy, the people will reach a breaking point, and they will march on Washington. And they will be mowed down by the hundreds of thousands, and more will pour in to replace them, because, folks, when you have nothing to lose, you lose it, as Gerald Celente says. And he's been right 90% of the time. He calls these bastards a mafia, and he uses the same terms, Nazis and fascists. He routinely calls this group of criminals, because that's exactly what they are. And when those of you march on Washington and get yourself killed, remember what I advocated. Do it peacefully by spreading the truth. Save your own life. Learn how to make videos and don't waste your time learning how to shoot a gun, because they have you outgunned. We can overwhelm them with simple truth if you help me spread the truth. And you can remain alive until the tidal wave comes in and wipes out your entire family. Nancy writes, ZetaTalk prediction, December 15th, 1999. Between the present and when there will surely be a crash of banks that cannot be sustained and the barter system essentially returns, there is an end game in play. She writes, most stocks are inflated beyond their value. Very few are not. And they can fall to 1/4 of their value before they settle with the public feeling that they have some confidence in the stock and that it cannot be worth less. ZetaTalk prediction, July 20th, 2002. Now notice, folks, that she is giving you the dates of her predictions. And this is 10 years ago. July 20th is just over 10 years ago. The real estate bubble will likewise burst. 2002, who would have thought that in 2006 and 2007 the real estate bubble would burst? They predicted it. The real estate bubble will likewise burst when the current weather problems and lack of insurance coverage prove this to be hollow. I don't know what she means by that. It's a bubble and it bursts. You have to understand that all the insurance companies are broke today. And if you have a life insurance policy, it's worthless. Prices are rising faster than the national debt. And even the FDIC is broke. So this idea that they can insure your deposit of $100,000 is pure fantasy. These bastards who control everything are going to tell the depositors, sorry, we're broke. The FDIC can't even give you your $100,000. One day you'll go to the bank to get your money and they'll be closed. If you have extra money in the bank, it would be a good idea to send it to your electric company and your water company. Pay them in advance, because when your bank closes, you won't be able to transfer any money from your bank to their bank. And they just might turn off your water and your power as a result. And if that happens in the middle of summer or the middle of winter, you really could be in trouble. They're going to make you prove every dollar you have in the bank. They're going to make you prove that it was honest money. While the puppet president is a guy who laundered money in Panama for the mafia, the CIA, and his company was Bain Capital. Elect Mitt Romney and you have a mafia capo in the White House. Elect Obama and you have an illegal alien in the White House. Which is it going to be? There's a gun to your head. Pick one. Do it fast. What happened to all the constitutional candidates? Who removed them? There was only one and he's gone. And the last I heard, he's backing the candidate who laundered money for the CIA mafia. That shows you how screwed up the world is. I used to say most of Congress is bad because I was thinking of Ron Paul and Dennis Kucinich. I wonder if Dennis Kucinich would do the same thing. turn his back on all his followers, and back a mafia capo, Mitt Romney. You have to prove that your deposit in the bank is honest money, while the puppet president is a money launderer. Nancy writes, the percent of the workforce to be affected is already increasing, and look to the Depression era worldwide for expected results. So in 2002, she's predicting a worldwide depression. During the coming depression, which is in fact in place but denied by the media and powers that be, one should look to the past Great Depression as an example of things to come. And so I would say that all the propaganda your lousy government tells you is nothing but propaganda, just like I said. We're already in a deep depression, and I already know it because I talk to people and I can see that they are hurting. There's more bad news. Nancy writes, ZetaTalk prediction, December 13th, 2008. The world will not emerge from this second Great Depression as it did the last. The reasons are manyfold. The pole shift will overtake the world prior to 2012. Well, that prediction is wrong, isn't it? Unless you consider that the pole shift is already underway and we're very close to it, and that it is already affecting weather, and already affecting food supplies, and already affecting the economies of the world. In that case, she might be right on her prediction of 2008. The pole shift will overtake the world prior to 2012. And going into that time, disasters will be increasing. Insurance companies will be going bankrupt. Well, they're already bankrupt. It's just a matter of filing the bankruptcy, in my opinion. They're all bankrupt. All of them. Check it out. And she says crop failures will be increasing and illness will be increasing. The outcome will be different this time because any success will be societal in service to other communities who will eventually merge with the high-tech alien centers operating in the service to other orientation. Now that tells you what you should do. Get committed to service to others. And I believe that the first step is the truth. Disseminating the truth. You can't get any more service to others than that, because that's going to bring about the changes in our Nazi and fascist government. But Nancy writes, but as confidence is the name of the game, everyone from bankers to politicians have denied the depression label and called it a recession or a double-dip recession or some other propaganda term. She is writing here as if the FDIC is not insolvent, that it's solvent, and I disagree vehemently. She writes, due to FDIC protecting bank accounts. With what? Imagination? And unemployment insurance helping out those out of a job? She doesn't know that they would, in the future, cut off unemployment benefits and round up the unemployed and murder them. They have gas chambers, they have incinerators to kill them and dispose of the bodies. And I believe they're doing that because there should be hundreds of millions of people on the streets, and they're not. They're vacant. The streets are vacant, and the homeless have vanished. And then she says, and the welfare blanket that was primarily not in place during the first Great Depression will protect the people. And she says because of those things, avoidance of the catastrophe that a depression brings about is possible. Well, not much longer. The FDIC is broke. The protection there vanishes. As soon as someone gets around to filing bankruptcy for the FDIC, all those $100,000 deposits are history. You lost your money. Anybody who makes a deposit into the bank today and thinks that they're insured, they don't know much about insurance. And when you go into a bank, there's FDIC everywhere. Everywhere. As if this was real. Nobody knows that the FDIC is broke. A bank teller at Chase told me these deposits are insured unlimited amounts. Unlimited. I said, you're a 25-year-old fool. You haven't a clue what's going on in the world. So Nancy's telling us that we are in a Great Depression, and by now the term is belatedly getting headlines. Well, I don't see it. I don't see any proof of that. Her next headline reads, how close are we to New Great Depression? July 16th, 2012. She gives a link to the article. And then she writes, it looks like a quote from that link. the risk of a new depression, a sustained, severe recession. What is a sustained, severe recession? Is that a euphemism for one word, depression? Has struck fear into the heart of markets and driven monetary policy in developed economies since the current financial crisis began. When we broke the link between money and gold, this removed all constraints on credit creation. That was an unconstitutional act, and Nixon should have gone to prison for that reason, child molestation reason, breaking into the Democratic headquarters at Watergate reason, and he got away with just resigning. He should have died in prison. She writes, "This explosion of credit created the world we live in, but it now seems that credit cannot expand any further because the private sector is incapable of repaying the debt it already has. And if credit begins to contract, there's a very real danger that the whole thing will collapse into a new Great Depression." And I'll tell you this, folks, Gerald Celente said the same, Jim Rogers said the same, Peter Schiff said the same, Max Kaiser said the same. I don't know what Al Gore said. He probably says that global warming is caused by car exhaust. What about Mars, Al Gore? Do they have cars on Mars? Nancy continues, "The explosion in cheap credit has been widely blamed for the global financial crisis, but the debate about how to fix the problem continues. You see, sound money is money backed by precious metals. That puts the limit on what they can do. And then we have the failures in the economy, the companies that should never have been in business failing. I'm talking about Lehman Brothers, Goldman Sachs, AIG. These companies should have failed, and they were bailed out by printing money. And this is really, really bad because it makes the eventual crash 100 times worse. So if you don't know how to grow food, you better learn because you won't be eating. And I did some videos on growing food, and I talked about the rapid growth of seeds in value, 10,000% in a single month. And I said, this is real money because the stuff that has numbers written on it, the pieces of paper with numbers on it, are not real money. They might be accepted right now, but there will be a time when you can't get to yours, where your paycheck isn't even enough to pay whatever minimum bills you have. She writes, "The increase in government debt is making total debt grow. Otherwise, we would have already collapsed into a debt deflation death spiral." This information doesn't come from her. It comes from the Zetas. They're telling us about our system. They study it. And the average IQ of the Zetas that Nancy's connected to is something like 287, and our average IQ is 100. And the majority of people, it seems, have an IQ at 100 or less, and they're not capable of analyzing this information. She writes, "Cover-up collapse. The Zetas have recently predicted that the cover-up over Planet X will be ending, most likely by an announcement by the fascist Nazi who sits in the White House without a birth certificate, Obama, and that Nibiru is indeed in the inner solar system and causing the magnetic interference, the earth wobble, and the wild weather extremes." Nancy says he will of course stop short of saying the Zetas were right all along, and I will make this prediction myself. When Obama makes such an announcement as the Zetas have predicted, he will not tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. It will be more propaganda. It'll be a little bit of truth and a whole bunch of lies mixed in. ZetaTalk prediction, June 16, 2012. What would be the outcome of admitting that there is a planet in the inner solar system? They could make a general announcement, and they could have their boy, Obama, make this announcement. He could explain that the issue has been under security directives to avoid panic. Oh, only those people in government don't panic. We the people panic. They don't. This is bullshit. I'll finish the sentence. But that is coming closer and becoming more obvious, and they feel that the public needs to know. No, what we need is an underground bunker like you bastards have. What we need is a place of safety. I think that the Zeta prediction that Obama's going to come clean and tell us the truth is bullshit. I don't think Obama will say a word until it's already obvious that there's a planet in the inner solar system causing all these earthquakes, volcanoes, and the moon jumping to the right and so on from the earth wobble. This is laughable that he's going to make an announcement that we need to know. By then we'll already know. When Obama makes this announcement, it'll be like somebody announcing who won the World Series a week after the last game was played. They're never going to tell you anything that you don't already know. And if they don't want you to know it, they'll just deny it. They won't ever tell you the truth about anything. Haven't you figured out what government is all about yet? Nancy says they could present diagrams showing where Planet X is positioned. I don't think they're likely to tell us where Planet X is, because if you want to make people panic, tell them that the car is doing 60 miles an hour and it's 3 feet away from a brick wall, headed straight towards it. If that doesn't make you panic, what would? That's really bullshit. They're going to tell us where Planet X is, because when you look at that total orbit and you see that this thing has been traveling back in for 1,800 years and nobody knew it. They knew it 50 years ago, and they knew we were 50 years away from tidal waves at least 3 miles high, because the insider told us. They knew that there was a cover-up for 50 years, and we knew that they scurried to build these underground safe havens for themselves with our tax dollars. And they sicked the IRS on us to fleece us of every dime. And they passed taxes after taxes after taxes to get all the money into their hands so they could build these things. And now they've left us out here in the cold, and then they're going to tell us 3 weeks before we go into the last 7 weeks of this, before the darkness. You talk about panicking the people. This is all bullshit. Drawing us diagrams to show where Planet X is positioned and explain what it's doing to the Earth, causing the wobbling and the weather changes. Any announcement they make is going to be extremely soft-pedaled. They're never going to tell you that 90% of your friends and family will be dead after it's all over. Nancy writes, they would say they're not sure of what the outcome will be. Bullshit. That the public will be kept informed. Bullshit. Then they'll fucking walk off the podium and let some scientist take over to explain all the details, Nancy writes. Instead of sticking around and answering the questions, why in the hell didn't you tell us before? Is it true that you built underground bunkers for yourselves and you left us out here to die? Isn't it true that you fleeced every penny you could from us to build those underground bunkers? We hope you drink your own piss. Walk off the podium and let some scientist take over to explain all the details. If you aren't as angry as I am about this, I don't know what you're thinking. We've been had. ZetaTalk prediction, July 14th, 2012. Council of Worlds is facing off against the cover-up. Sounds like interference to me. I don't mind if they interfere, as long as they're on our side. As long as they understand that we're being victimized by a small group of humans that should be disposed of permanently so they can never do what they did to us again. So Nancy poses the question, who is winning and who is losing and how might this end? Most of the battle is behind the scenes, in the consciousness of the public and the discussions in smoke-filled rooms of the establishment. Try the Nazis and the fascists and the slave masters. Establishment. That's a 1970s term, 1960s term, establishment. It sounds like a hippie word. The hippies didn't know that Nixon was forced to keep that war going because of the military-industrial complex, Vietnam I'm talking about. The hippies called it the establishment, and the hippies were the bad guys. That's how much control they had over us. Today they tried the same thing for the Occupy Wall Street movement, and a lot of people see them, the establishment, as the bad guys. And so that's one difference between the hippie movement and this Occupy Wall Street movement today. You had people dressed in unappealing and weird manner. Today, you see 84-year-old ladies like Dorley Rainey, an activist who lived under Hitler and knows firsthand what it's like. And I did a video about her, and that video is on your screen right now. The link is there. Dorley Rainey was pepper sprayed by the establishment of Nazis and fascists and their minions, the New York Police Department, who get away with murder just so long as they carry out the wishes of their bosses, the Illuminati, the Queen, and the Committee of 300, and the Bilderbergs, and all the other conspiracies, Council on Foreign Relations, Trilateral Commission, all conspiracies. And if you're not a conspiracy theorist, where the hell have you been? When are you going to catch up? They're all conspiracies. Look at the way they're organized. Listen to David Icke. He knows about the conspiracies. He's been speaking about them 20 years already. He was one of the first to recognize the true situation. And if you don't have a belief in conspiracies, you don't know what the hell is going on. You might as well crawl back into your couch and continue with your television. Nancy posed the question, who is winning and who is losing, and how might this end? Nancy continues, contactees who are now a number of approaching billions. Billions of contactees? I don't think so. Are aware of the presence of Planet X. I am not a contactee. I am not a channeler. I have never been abducted. Oh, wait a minute. No, I'm just kidding. I have never been abducted. But somehow I feel connected to them. I feel that I made a commitment to live this life and do these things that I'm doing now. I think I have a role to play, if you want me to be honest about it. So they're aware of the presence of Planet X and that their governments, and in many cases their religious leaders, have been lying to them. Well, that's pretty elementary information. Your leaders are lying to you. Your religious leaders are lying to you. They have to lie. There is no God. There's creation, perhaps. That's what the aliens tell us. But they tell us there is no God. It is not a he. He doesn't look like us. I hope the people retaliate when they know the truth. And by retaliate, I'm not talking about violence. Although it would please me if somebody got out of control and lynched all of Congress, except Dennis Kucinich. He's the last one I would save. There are a few others. There are a few who are truly committed to serving the people. But Ron Paul is no longer on the list, and his son certainly is not. They have turned coats like cowards, and they are now part of the mafia, and they will never regain my trust. Never. Ron Paul might as well do what his son did, because he'll never have my vote again. Nobody who is on the side of the enemy, even temporarily, is going to win with me. As I said, I do not advocate violence. I advocate spreading the truth. And I strongly advocate that we take the power away from all of those who have it, because they don't know what to do with it, and what they're doing is wrong. They don't deserve power. They deserve prison, most of them. And I guarantee you, if we put everybody who's in government in prison, who's done things against the people, committed crimes, and I'm talking about crimes before they made it all legal. I'm talking about unconstitutional acts. If you put every one of them in prison who has violated their oath to the Constitution, we'd have a whole new government. Nancy writes, those in charge of the cover-up are becoming increasingly polarized. Good! Which was frankly expected in situations like this, so that even as the conspiracy, weakens, it appears on the surface to be hardening. No, I agree completely that when you see the laws getting stricter and stricter, it tells you that the goddamn dictatorship is falling apart. Nancy continues, progress in this matter is gradual as the establishment can see evidence handed to the common man has an upward and exponential trend. I guess she's trying to say it goes viral. So they don't want to release any information at all, afraid that if they give us just a hint that Planet X is real, that we're all going to do a lot of research and discover that it is indeed real. As I said earlier, I'm not committed to Planet X yet. I want to see it. I see the crop circles. I think it's strong evidence. I see all the testimony. I see the aliens, what they say. I see the earthquakes and volcanoes, and it's all strong evidence. But the court case is not over yet, and as a judge, each one of us is our own judge. As the judge, I want to hear all the evidence first, including eyewitness myself. And I hope that you are the same way. But I hope that you're not ignorant and you don't completely ignore all this and say it's all sci-fi. I got an email today. Some jerk said it was sci-fi. Some of these people are nuts. They come back over and over again. Thumbs down, thumbs down, thumbs down. And it really hurts the viewing ratings because people want to hear this stuff. They want to see my videos. I have over 400 videos. I have a right to make them. They have a right to see them. And these people are interfering. Nancy's considering the possibility that our rotten government will finally tell us the truth after it's already obvious that Planet X is real. Nancy asked the question, what will emerge on the media after the announcement? And she leaves it there. And then I say, well, at that point, the people know that they can't trust any media source or any governmental agency, so you can expect a radical change in the structure of our society, and it's about time. Nancy continues, one can sense the rustling around as various internet personalities try to arrange a place on the stage as someone who predicted this, who was warning the public all along, and who was caught, poor things, in the demands of the establishment that they lie to the public. No argument from me. She says, we will certainly have NASA now explaining where Planet X is at the present and giving us updates on its progress, and I say bullshit. Those in NASA will be running for the dugouts. They'll be going underground faster than you can say fascist Nazis. And then Nancy says, never mind that they singled Nancy Lieder out as the person not to listen to in the past. She says both Don Yeomans and Dick Morrison, senior men at NASA, made it a point to mention me by name, Nancy Lieder, as one person you should not listen to. Well, anything that comes from government, I do the opposite, so telling me not to listen to Nancy Lieder would cause me to seek her out, read her website, and find out what she's saying. And if I agree that she's not one to listen to, then I will make that decision, not my government, my Nazi government that likes to touch my genitals at the airport. Perhaps the bad astronomy guy, Phil Plait, will be happy to explain why his website has dripped with ridicule all these many years. Just doing his civic duty, you know. And then there are the many who claimed Planet X either is not real or claim it is out near Jupiter, even though photographic evidence shows the moons of Planet X wafting between the Earth and the Sun. Well, that photographic evidence that Nancy's referring to is doubtful. I haven't seen anything convincing. Have you? She says the establishment will no doubt try to arrange preferential treatment of their lapdogs, but is there any evidence on what their preferences might be? I don't know what she's talking about. Surprisingly, it seems they do not want military leaks to be on that list. So I think she's about to tell us about the John Moore show and tell us that somebody called in with wrong information, and it was done to embarrass John Moore. Well, we already know their tactics. And it wouldn't surprise me if they set up John Moore for embarrassment. She says the John Moore show, 11th of July, 2012. A soldier in the military gave John Moore a call on the 10th of July, according to the show. Sounds like that would be the day before the show. So he calls in before the show, telling John Moore that last week the military had been conducting briefings for soldier families living on the east, west, and Gulf Coast of the U.S. The soldiers were told about a planet that has entered the solar system called Nibiru, and this planet will be causing very severe problems, much worse than what the world is now experiencing. I don't think the military is very high-ranking. They are a tool to be used by this group of Nazis who control everything. You can call them any name you want. There are dozens of names for them. They're the controllers, the slave masters, the ones who own everything. And I don't think that they would tell the military anything. They might move the military when it serves their purposes, but they have no obligation to tell the military anything, and they don't. They would just as soon spend your life or mine in order to take some oil away from some dictator in Iraq or something, and they don't care about any of us. Military, police, any of us, and that is our strongest card to play. When you talk to military, see if you can get them to understand that concept, that the military are pawns to them. Because when a soldier is given orders to do something that's against the Constitution, against his religious beliefs, the soldier has to say, no, I won't do it. And a lot of soldiers have, but they don't get a lot of publicity. Some of them have been banished from the country. I've read about this. And you have to admire the soldiers who do this, who stand up to them. They're like Jesse Ventura, Alex Jones, Charlie Sheen, and whereas, and Gerald Celente, and Max Kaiser. These are the people who are to be admired, and the soldiers who stand up to them too. The soldiers are out there on the battlefield, and they take the bullets, the IEDs. They're the ones who are sent into battle unequipped by a government that just doesn't care how many of them are slaughtered. So this soldier says that their families should prepare, and that they are being put on standby, ready to leave with little notice. Now Nancy asks, so my question is, why are they informing military personnel, assuming that the show speaks the truth? And she's opening up the possibility that John Moore is a liar and that he made it up in order to elevate himself. And I've heard John Moore speak, and he speaks as if he's speaking for everybody, which he's not. He speaks with certainties that I don't think he has. I don't like his show. I've been asked to hear it by several people. So Nancy asks, why are they now informing military personnel? Is this an altruistic action or another agenda in play here? Well, I'll tell you right now, they don't have any altruistic nature. They do have agendas. So I'm going to go with your second choice. It's another agenda. I hope I got it right. Nancy says something else that's important. If they advise the military, why wouldn't they advise the public? She says clearly they are not informing the public. And then she gives a link to another YouTube video, it looks like. She calls it another private and trusted source. So she thinks that John Moore is a trusted source, private and trusted source. Another private and trusted source. These kinds of briefings would take place 6 weeks to 3 to 4 months ahead at most. My source, both mature men and both Vietnam vets, my source is not the dependent. The original source does not even know they are a source. I don't know what that means. ZetaTalk prediction, July 21st. That's 8 days ago. Well, today is the 28th. It was 7 days ago, 1 week ago. For me, today is Saturday. Tomorrow is Sunday, the 29th of July, 2012. ZetaTalk prediction, 1 week ago, July 21st, 2012. John Moore's source was provided false information to embarrass John Moore and discredit him. Now, I'm confused. They call it a prediction. They made the prediction on July 21st, 2012. They made the prediction that John Moore's source was provided false information to embarrass John Moore and discredit him. Well, they do that routinely, and I know that they have done that to Benjamin Bullshit and the fake Drake mistake. Nancy continues, given that the cover-up is so tense, the fear of a breach among those in the know so heightened that anyone even suspected of planning to leak information to the public is killed. What is the likelihood that dependents in the U.S. military en masse would be informed? The concept is ludicrous, and anyone entertaining the concept a fool. The cover-up is poised to make an announcement by Obama, a worldwide broadcast announcing the presence of Nibiru, also known as Planet X, nearby. When such an announcement is made, the cover-up is most concerned about maintaining control of the message. In that ZetaTalk has been on target since its birth in 1995, even tracking Planet X into the inner solar system in 2003, with documented evidence it cannot be disputed. It is also too widely known to be eliminated and has proven resistant to being discredited. But there are dozens of individuals generating their own prophecies and garnering their own following who will try to grab the stage. Well, my prediction comes from what I've read, and from what I can determine, that is the best date that I can come up with based on everything I know. Is that valuable to the listener? I hope that your only valuable conclusion is your own, and that if other people have opinions, I think March, April 2013 is the date of the pole shift. I hope that everybody is very careful about what they believe and what they join. Nancy says the cover-up wants to be the only voice that's listened to and fully in control of the message, and thus these other human sources of information are being taken down one at a time ahead of time. Well, no matter what government puts out, folks, for me, it's all bullshit and it's all propaganda, and I believe nothing. And even though I don't like John Moore's show, I would rather believe him than government. If Obama makes an announcement and John Moore makes an announcement, I'd suspect that John Moore is being misled, and I know damned well that Obama is telling us a bunch of lies. So on one I'm going to handle cautiously, and the other one I'm going to flat out refuse to believe anything, not even one word of what Obama says. Anybody who thinks it's right to kill Americans who haven't been charged with any crime and defy the Constitution and violate their oath to uphold the Constitution will never pass with me. Obama will always be on my shit list. Now Nancy changes the subject and she wants to talk about drought and deluge. Knowing that the Earth wobble will develop after Planet X entered the inner solar system in 2003, the Zetas made some astonishingly accurate weather predictions at the start of ZetaTalk in 1995. I calculated that Nibiru is traveling between 175 miles per hour and 300 miles per hour, and that depends on how far out into the Kuiper Belt it goes. But if you take the total distance, some 5 billion miles each way, and you divide that by 3,657 years, you'll wind up with about 175 miles per hour to about 200 and something, 275 I think, miles per hour. And it can't travel any faster than that unless it goes out farther than Pluto. Neptune is on the near side of the Kuiper Belt, and by the time we get out to Pluto, most of the Kuiper Belt is already done. And there are objects beyond Pluto, a lot of them. There's something out there called the Oort, O-O-R-T. So you never end with the objects, but there's a big ring called the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, and then there's a Kuiper Belt between Neptune and Pluto. And this object, Planet X, goes out into the Kuiper Belt, but nobody knows how deep except those who are not talking. Some of the dead people knew, and they got killed, so the rest of them are being quiet. And of course, everybody has a pension and a salary, and they're worried about losing it, so they keep their mouths shut too. So the leaks are controlled with money. Now, if this object entered the inner solar system in 2003, 9 years ago, then it can't be traveling too doggone fast. Someone wrote to me and said it's traveling 30,000 miles per hour. Well, it's too bad he's not a mathematician, because if you multiply 30,000 times the number of hours in a day, the number of days in a year, and the number of years since it was here last, you'd find that the thing could have come back and forth 100 times. It's not traveling that fast. The global warming has been gradual, And now that it's nearby, we're having a lot of earthquakes and volcanoes and a lot of crop circles telling me, basically, what I infer from the crop circles is that we are just about to have a pole shift. How soon? Real soon. What does that mean? Ask Sheldon Neidl. I don't know exactly what it means. If it happened within 9 months, would you consider that real soon? I think it's within 9 months. I don't think the aliens would show up here 40 years in advance and make crop circles for us. What for? It's imminent. So Nancy says that the wobble of the earth affects the tides and the air currents. I think that's true, definitely. And this causes weather extremes and trends. Why would the change of wind or air currents cause weather extremes? Are you talking about blowing Arctic air down into the tropics and having snow? I don't get that. She says they knew the wobble was coming, the Zetas. All right, well, the Zetas were here for the last pole shift, and even though those beings only live about 400 years, Nancy's friends, the Zetas, live about 400 years. That's what I read or heard in one of her videos or read it on her website. They live about 400 years. Obviously, the ones that are with us today are not the ones that saw the last pole shift, but they did record it. And they might have the ability to travel in time. They might have stored it on videotape of some kind, some alien kind. And if they have all these records and they are scientists and they are able to fly around galaxies and universes, we have to consider what they say. They said the wobble was coming. They told us the sequence of events before the pole shift, that the Earth's going to stop its rotation. That means a lot of sloshing of water. That means an end to the centrifugal force of the water at the equator, which means that 13-mile bulge at the equator is going to settle out, and that means that land near the coast will see water rising very fast. If the Earth is standing still for 3 to 6 days, I forgot what the calendar says. Nancy's calendar says the Earth will stand still for a while. No rotation. It's locked onto this magnet, and it stops rotating. And so I expect tsunamis at that time, certainly a rise in sea level, and then the pole shift, and then this thing continues out into space, and it lets go of the Earth, and the Earth resumes its spin. Because the Earth's spin does not come from asteroids hitting it and spinning it, like you would spin a ball by hitting it on one side. The Earth's spin comes from the magnetism and the forces between the sun and the Earth. The sun causes the Earth to spin. In 1995, ZetaTalk predicted the following. This was July 15th, 1995. All attempts to explain the changes based on global warming from the greenhouse effect, that big lie that Al Gore promoted, and they tried to say that all of the scientists agreed on this, and the scientists said, no, we don't. All attempts to explain the changes based on global warming from the greenhouse effect will run into snags, as the weather will refuse to be predictable. Now, this is the surprising part. Areas of the world which have been deserts throughout mankind's memory will become swamps under constant and repeated rains. Well, we had rain today in Arizona, and I looked out the window and I thought I was in a swamp. This is the heaviest rain we've had this season, and we need it. She says temperate climates used to periodic gentle rainfall will suffer intractable droughts. Then this will switch about for no apparent reason. Well, I think that has to do with magnetism, and that the patterns of weather are based on magnetic attraction. ZetaTalk prediction, July 29, 2005. So how many years ago was that? 7 years ago. Exactly. It will be 7 years exactly tomorrow. We warned at the start of ZetaTalk in 1995 that unpredictable weather extremes, switching about from drought to deluge, would occur and increase on a lineal basis up until the pole shift. Where this occurred steadily, it has only recently become undeniable. ZetaTalk and only ZetaTalk warned of these weather changes at that early date. Has this occurred? Just compare the drought map of the U.S. in June 2007 to the current 2012 drought map. The drought is threatening to cripple the ability of the U.S. to feed itself. America burning. Drought devastating 26 states is the largest natural disaster area in U.S. history. July 12, 2012. And she has a link. Severe drought conditions plaguing more than half of the United States has developed into the largest natural disaster area in the country's history. The United States Department of Agriculture declared natural disasters for 26 states and more than 1,000 counties because of the extreme drought that has destroyed crops in farms throughout the nation. The next headline she has reads, Widespread crop failures likely in U.S. this summer. July 5, 2012. She has a link to the article. The lack of rainfall nationally has caused drought conditions from coast to coast. If temperatures continue to stay this high and we don't start seeing some more rain, farmers and ranchers all over the nation are going to be absolutely devastated. So what happens if we do see widespread crop failures throughout the United States? That is a question that is frightening to think about. Deluge has likewise worsened just recently. Case in point is the deadly floods in Japan, the storms in Edmonton with humongous hail, the storms in the Czech Republic, likewise with humongous hail, and a deluge in Moscow so sudden the cars were covered in an instant. Note the dates on the article ranging from July 5th to July 13th, 2012, a period of a week where deluge, humongous hail, and lightning storms occurred all the while the U.S. is so dry that half of the states are being declared a natural disaster region. Clearly, the Zeta prediction on drought and deluge has proved true. All right, now she starts to talk about what happens in Japan, and I think that if you want to read that, you can go to the website and read it because it's not that interesting to read about massive floods in foreign countries. Now, there is one part I want to read, and then I think that we can wrap it up. Climate science in shambles, real scientists battle UN agenda. And there's a link. And this is dated July 13th, 2012. This is very interesting. I'll read the title again. Climate Science in Shambles. Real Scientists Battle UN Agenda. On July 13th of 2012, an article comes out that says that scientists, real scientists, are battling the UN agenda. The UN agenda is to get a carbon tax blanketed over all the people of the earth so that a handful of people can enjoy their earnings. They can spend their earnings for them. This is slavery. More than 31,000 scientists in the United States have signed a petition urging the U.S. government to reject the kinds of AGW policies. I don't know what AGW stands for. She could have told us once and then expected us to remember it, but she introduces the term for the first time with no explanation whatsoever. AGW policies proposed by the UN, an environmental extremist. There is no convincing scientific evidence that human release of carbon dioxide, methane, or other greenhouse gases is causing or will in the foreseeable future cause catastrophic heating of the Earth's atmosphere and disruption of the Earth's climate. The Earth's core is heating up by thousands of degrees, and the atmosphere has only changed 1 degree, if that. And the Earth's atmosphere has not heated up the core of the Earth. This is Al Gore science. It's bullshit. He's a liar, and he got a Nobel Prize to fool us all into thinking he's a great scientist. He isn't even a great politician. He isn't even a great liar. What he is he's a big fat slob. And his wife dumped him. More than 1,000 internationally renowned scientists have gone further, Nancy writes. They have not merely signed a petition, but they have made public statements challenging key claims of the AGW alarmists. I think GW stands for global warming, and A might be Al Gore, or Al Gore lie. It might also mean atmospheric global warming, which is a totally bullshit science. Total bullshit. I had a lady tell me on the phone in the last couple of weeks that all the scientists agree that global warming is caused by car exhaust. I said, where did you get that idea? Government? That's not true. Most of the scientists strongly disagree with this global warming bullshit. The planet is heating up. Has nothing to do with carbon dioxide. Has to do with all the planets heating up. And there's one cause, and I think that cause is Planet X. But I'm not sure. I just think so. I'm thinking that's correct. She says, forget any notion that 4,000 scientists supported the claim, or even the 3,750 plus people mentioned by the IPCC. She could at least tell us what IPCC stands for. Also forget any notion that all 2,890 individuals who were authors, reviewers, or both supported the claim. The only explicit evidence for support from just less than 60 individuals. The only explicit evidence is for support from just less than 60 individuals. So she's saying that the claim is that 3,750 scientists agree, 2,890 individuals and authors agree with this bullshit report, this bullshit claim. And she says when you get down to the truth, it's only 60 individuals or less. I say this is criminal, this is appalling, this is your government caught red-handed in a campaign to spread lies and call it the truth. That's what I call propaganda. You probably call it bullshit, but it's really propaganda, trying to control your mind with lies. And I advocate that everybody go public with a video denouncing this act. Government has no right to bend the truth to make you believe what they want you to believe. They have no right to influence the Nobel Prize and have it awarded to a liar, Al Gore. Al Gore should be in prison for what he did. He should be arrested, given a fair trial, and if found guilty, he should be sent to prison. He used his public office and his notoriety to spread a lie. He should be held accountable and pay damages to anyone who suffered a loss. The guy has $100 million. Wouldn't it be nice to see that go into the hands of the people where it came from to start with? All the bribes paid to these people are money that's confiscated from you and me. Let's return to Nancy's article. June 25th, 2011, How to Salvage the Global Warming Excuse. This has been the darling of the cover-up crowd, the reason for the erratic weather. The high tides and rising seas, the high tides and rising seas, even the reason the world's populace should shift to a more vegetarian diet and less reliance on fossil fuels. Poorly managed, this ultimately was revealed for the hoax it is. Data manipulated at the highest levels. She forgot to say, of government. Government committing crimes against the people. And no arrests. Nancy writes, now those who have been hurt by legislated demands that they adjust their carbon footprint are furious and demanding blood. Well, I hope they sue Al Gore and make him spend the rest of his life in court defending his lies. She asks, should Al Gore apologize? Fat boy will never apologize. He's been paid to lie. If he apologizes, then everyone knows the truth. He becomes liable. No, he's not going to apologize. The global warming hoax marched past the revelation of their fraudulent data, and they will march past lack of cooperation from Obama, holding firm as the alternative is unthinkable. The alternative is humiliation, but more than that, it would raise the question of why such a fraud was considered necessary. However, apologies will not be forthcoming due to the humiliation factor, even when the presence of Planet X is obvious. And when it's obvious, that's when you can expect them to reveal that it's here. There it is in the sky. You can see the damn thing, and now they're telling us, by the way, there's a Planet X. And she ends her newsletter by saying, you received this newsletter because you subscribed to it. And if it's undesired, you can quickly unsubscribe. In other words, there's no gun to your head like the Social Security system. Thanks for watching. Planet X News for Sunday, July 29, 2012. Obama close to announcing extinction-level event. This just in, Nancy Lieder's weekly newsletter contains some startling news. And even though I'm very busy working on 2 new videos, one about a Russian scientist who discovered anti-gravity properties that enable large insects to fly without the pull of gravity, and then he built a device using the wings of these tiny creatures, and it flew at an altitude of 1,000 feet and almost 1,000 miles per hour. That's the first project I set aside in order to do this video on an emergency basis. The second video I'm working on is about the Mozart opera, The Marriage of Figaro, but that very important project will have to wait while I devote my time to this week's ZetaTalk.com report by Nancy Lieder, because this will knock your socks off. This will sink your boat. She has made some startling predictions in the past, and they have come true. And she mentions just a few this week out of many thousands of accurate predictions. Nancy Lieder, you remember, has friends in high places, and she doesn't make claims like other people I know, Benjamin Bullshit and Fake Drake and Cliff High, all idolized by one David Wilcock, who himself is another fake and mistake, for he never did go into a trance and cure anyone like the real Edgar Casey, and I quit his camp long ago, before any of you figured out what's going on. And I was getting a lot of traffic as a result of Benjamin Bullshit, and it was daring and risky to depart. When I was doing Benjamin Bullshit reports, I hit an all-time high of 132,000 views in 1 month. And when I abandoned Benjamin Bullshit, my views dropped to about 98,000. It's about 25%. And I made the daring decision to begin reading Nancy Lieder's newsletters for one simple reason. She's often right. In fact, she's almost always right. But she is no more perfect than anyone else. The accuracy of her predictions does not come from disinformation and misinformation like Benjamin Bullshit and Drake the Fake. And I think they were intentionally misled by what Fulford thought was the CIA and the Queen. You may recall that Benjamin Bullshit elevated himself to the level of the Queen when she allegedly offered him a $1,200 trillion bond, and I choked as I read it to you because I found that incredulous. The world GDP is only $75 trillion. This is $1,200, and people want to be imprisoned by the institution of marriage. People just want to be free, that's all. Married people are cheating. They want to be free. They're lying to their spouse. Marriage doesn't work anywhere on earth, except in little pockets here and there, maybe once in a while. It works, because 2 people are so ugly, they can't cheat. But good-looking people are pursued, and they like the action, and they fool around everywhere on earth. Why do you think the Muslims cover their faces? They don't want you to see how pretty their wife is. You might try to nail her. People want to be free, that's all. Jesus hasn't saved one person who is burning up in a building. Some of you people think that Jesus is watching every move you make. That isn't Jesus. That's the secret government. Don't you see the cameras everywhere? Haven't you noticed how slow your computer is now? What do you think that is? It's their algorithms. They forced the software manufacturers to put in these algorithms, and they can't take them out and they can't talk about it, or the CIA will murder them. They put routines on the software, and the software reports back to them like a spy. And every letter you type on the keyboard, every word you say on the telephone is being recorded not by Jesus, but by the secret government. Those watching you are Nazis, not Jesus. Wake up and smell the fascism. Do you know of just one case where a devout Christian was saved by Jesus himself? There isn't any such story. There are more stories of people being picked up by aliens and taken to a foreign planet, like Billy Meyer. He went to many planets. He asked a lot of questions. He sounded like a third grader. Why is there air? So why do you believe such things like this Jesus stuff? Because you were brainwashed as a kid and now you're going to brainwash your kids and continue the legacy of lying and telling kids lies and making them believe in something that isn't there? I think it's all right if you practice Christianity as long as you don't brainwash kids. But don't come to this channel with your religious stuff because I don't like it. I don't like the quoting of Scripture. And I block a lot of people because they bring nonsense to my channel. Sometimes a religious scripture is so appropriate I can't do anything about it. I just leave it there. But I don't like it. I believe that religion is slavery. What am I, a slave? I ain't no slave. I believe that you're believing in things that are purely imaginary, and that's delusional. Okay, now I'm going to read the weekly newsletter from ZetaTalk.com, and I reached 7,363 in a single day. Over 730,000 views on this channel in less than a year. I made the right decision, and the channel is growing at a rate of 400% annually right now. And it's because of Planet X videos. I'm just bringing you what the other people say, that's all. I'm not preaching a religion here. I'm not asking you to believe on faith. I'm asking you to consider these people's contributions, testimony, predictions. Consider them, that's all. I'm not ready to jump on their wagon train and eat their hash that's trash and will put a rash on your butt. Of the 157,000 views for the last month, 1/3 came from one video I did with the insider reporting what he saw in the Hubble Space Telescope with his CIA mafia buddies. Yes, the CIA is a mafia, and they deal not only in illegal drugs, but their boy Mitt Romney used to launder money for them with his Panama company, Bain Capital. I expect a big scandal over Bain Capital when the truth comes out about this Panamanian company that he ran. And I expect the truth to come out about the CIA, that they not only traffic in drugs, but in sex-slave children as well. And Ted Gunderson covered this, and he explored it. He did his own investigation, and he was with the FBI. He was an honest man. He's dead now. But Ted Gunderson is one you want to read about and watch the videos. Bain Capital is something you need to explore if you're planning to vote for the lesser of two evils, Romney. I've read that investors with Bain Capital made 173% annually. It's a CIA front, and Romney is at the core of that CIA drug trafficking cartel and Bain Capital money laundering outfit. And if you think there's a war on drugs in this country, then you don't know the truth. There's a war against competition, maybe, because the CIA doesn't want any competition. Back to the space case in Planet X. Nancy Lieder's facts come from those from the Zeta Reticuli star system. She calls them the Zetas. Some of you dirtbags out there think that all aliens belong to the same country club and score the same on the golf course. But actually, there are aliens from every point in the night sky, and some of those points are actually entire galaxies. Did you see the video where they found a small patch of black sky? and they thought nothing is there. And they pointed the Hubble Space Telescope at it for 11 days. 100 trillion? How many years is that? It's 16 years. 16 years of gross domestic product for the entire world, and she's offering it to Benjamin Fulford? Pardon me, but that's not credible. And if he believed it, he's not the leader I thought he was. And so I jumped ship, and I took up with Nancy, and I suffered as a result of taking that action. Drake was another mistake, and he turned out to be a fake when his July 4th promised fireworks and mass arrests didn't happen. And these people just want to forget about it. They don't want to talk to you about their mistakes. They don't want to answer the question. They don't want to make a public announcement. I'm sorry I was such a fool and said July 4th would be recorded this year with mass arrests and fireworks like you've never seen. I was mistaken. Instead, he just hides, doesn't address the issue at all. I think Drake was played like a piano by the same folks who discredited Benjamin bullshit, and for the same reason. They don't want you to have a guru, and they want to maintain total control of the lies you believe. So I advocate that you be careful and don't jump into anyone's wagon train until you have tasted their beef jerky and determined for yourself that it's the real deal. Some of these cooks are slinging hash that's pure trash, and it will give you a rash on your, well, I think you know where. When I jumped ship and abandoned fake Drake and Benjamin bullshit, going instead with Nancy Leader, I stopped reading the Benjamin Fulford report. Some of you dropped subscribership with me. Some of you urged me to read those reports of the trillion-dollar bond offers and the hot tips from the CIA and the Pentagon, but I smelled a rat, and I didn't want to be part of it anymore. And so I resisted your requests, and I explained I can't go along with Benjamin and his bullshit. I like Benjamin Fulford, and if I call him Benjamin Bullshit, it's not because I don't like him. It's because he's been played like a piano, and he hasn't been careful enough to know when his keys are being cranked. My views dropped 25%, and then they started to rise after I made the switch to Nancy Leader and started covering Planet X. Whereas with Benjamin Fulford, my record was 132,000 views in 1 month. My views today are 157,000 for the past 30 days. And the old record for one day was just a little over 6,000. And recently I hit 7,363 on a single day. Now that's reaching a lot of people because I came here thinking I'd reach 10 a day, something like 11 days. And they found 10,000 galaxies where there was absolutely no light emanating from there at all. 10,000 galaxies. And the announcer said in that video, every point of light you see is not a star, it's an entire galaxy with billions of stars. Now, do you think there's life there? The aliens tell us there's life all over the universe. Not every planet. Some planets are uninhabitable. But when you look up in the sky and you see nothing but blackness, and then you point the Hubble there and you see galaxies, you know that there are at least 20 alien groups from each point of light. So don't clump all the grays into one simple category, because that is a very ignorant view of the reality of space and the universe. There are dozens of gray species that we already know of, and millions of gray species that we haven't met, because they're busy and they don't have time for one useless planet out there in the cosmos. If we can't see them with the naked eye, they might not be able to see our galaxy with the naked eye either. And when they look through a helper like the Hubble Space Telescope and they see our galaxy finally, they don't realize that there's one planet on one of those stars and there's Earth people on it. This is not important. It's not significant. But if you think that we are the only life in the universe, just remember you're on a tiny speck in the cosmos, and your brain is even smaller. So we really don't have the capacity to understand the entire universe and all the life that's here. And we have a very narrow way of thinking. So don't cluster all these grays into one category. I get many comments from you guys. You're telling me specifically how many gray species there are. And I write back, how would you know? I don't mean to be offensive. I'm just asking you a question. How in the hell do you know? And some of you write to me about Jesus. Do you think it's your job to spread the word of Jesus? Or to tell everybody that Jesus is going to save us? Save it for Sunday school. This is not a church. It's a channel. Do you know the difference? Don't quote scripture here. Save it for Sunday school. Only small children would believe such rubbish. Jesus doesn't pop out of nowhere and save somebody who's drowning in a flood, burning up in a building, or falling into a sinkhole. Anyone who believes such garbage is delusional, in my opinion. Slap yourself. Wake up. This is worse than the delusion that marriage works.